Yeah, this is the Seton Rivals podcast where during football season and every now and then through the quote-unquote off season, we bring you real detailed coverage of 8 high schools, 6 in the CUSD and 2 who are also within we'll say the Chandler borders, so to speak. And it's been a fun ride, and the ride continues. And what's great also is the platform continues to elevate. You can catch us on the Seton Rivals Facebook page. You can catch us on the Arizona Varsity Podcast Network and also Sports 360 as well. The platform, the podcast, it continues to grow. And who does it grow with? It grows with 2 guys who I've been working with for a long time. And the first guy out would be Mr. Chili, and the second guy out would be Ralph Amsden. As 12, 13 years ago, we all connected, and it's been clear sailing. I mean, when we get together, as I will tell people in person or on this platform, nobody does it better for Seton than we do. And before we jump into Seton, wow, 5-3, not really the norm, but Chili, let me just ask you over the course of the week, tell me something non-football. You're a guy who you bounce around and you do some fun things, non-football related.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks keep winning, and I keep getting trolled for that because last year, I genuinely thought going into last year that they were going to lose 100 games. Brett, me and you talked on the side about this, about my feelings about them last year early. And then obviously they made their World Series run. And then this year, I really felt like they couldn't replicate things. So, I take a lot of heavy trolling for my D-backs predictions. And last year, nobody really beat me up too bad for it until they made the World Series, right? Because that's the way it works. This year, everybody's like, dude, Chili, you got to predict them to lose 100 games again. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to lose 100. I just don't know if they're that good. But I think people figured them out, but maybe not, because this team and I know we're not a baseball show, but Brett, you are a baseball guy. They are scoring runs at a frenetic pace. This is insane.
They are. They're very under the radar good, I think is the best way to put it. It's like they're not.
How is a team that just went to the World Series still underrated, though?
I mean,
but how?
It sounds crazy, but it's the D-backs generally are one could rattle off, doesn't matter where you are in the nation. Hey, give me 12 teams that are over 500. The Diamondbacks would probably be last. They just don't have that national cachet.
Ralph, Ralph, I got to ask you as a D-back, since you're the actual D-backs fan here, I feel like the full D-backs representative here. Is this the traditional, consistent Arizona's always slept on thing with the D-backs? What's going on with them?
The truth is the Diamondbacks have only made the playoffs 2 years in a row one time. Any disrespect that the Diamondbacks have, they've earned over their franchise history. I don't think that they're slept on at all. They snuck into the playoffs last year, made a World Series run, just like when the Cardinals snuck in and made a Super Bowl run. The Cardinals were actually better that next year, but they lost in the playoffs to the Saints or something like that. And so, they're on notice. Like baseball people know about them, but the never having sustained success has kept people from buying in. Also, they're not doing the best job in the world at marketing their stars outside of one guy who is slumping really hard, or was at least earlier in the season. So I think that they've kind of earned this under the radar reputation with their history, but none of that matters if they win when it counts.
That's
all
fair
right.
enough.
Brett, did I fulfill your quota of not non-football related talk?
You did. Yes, you did. You took it in a direction that I was not expecting. And I will say we could be White Sox fans. That would be tough right now this year. That really would. But Ralph, something you mentioned last week, just the growth of the podcast. You mentioned if a kid was in kindergarten or first grade when we started, they would be seniors now in high school. One guy who means a lot to the podcast, just a back and forth relationship, which is fantastic, Brian Winfrey. So I was catching up with Brian Winfrey this past week. when we started the podcast, he was single. Since then, he has been married. And last week, Ralph, he had his 4th kid. And all during this podcast time. So I think that is amazing. We talk about the podcast growing. His family has truly grown with the podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, guys that we covered in the very beginning, like Santana Sterling, first year of the podcast was his last year of high school. You know, he's married with a kid on the way. You know, it's wild to see some of these guys that we covered in the very beginning are on the verge of hitting 30 years old, you know, passing through major life stages, and we're still here doing it. I text Fabian Ardaya to let him know he got a mention on season 12 of the Seton Rivals podcast. He could hardly believe we were still doing it. So shout out to Fabian. And it's been a lot of fun.
And Dom Catronio.
Dom Catronio. Yeah.
I talk to him all the time. I be DMing him all the time because he be into sneakers like myself. So
I mean, it truly has grown. I mean, I'll say for myself, I get a kick out of it when people just start talking about it in the grocery store, or I mean, the sidelines is one thing, but when they actually recognize us, it's like, wow, this truly does have reach, carry. But aside from that, it's meaningful to a lot of people. So I mean, it's been a blast, and I'll start it off with the Valley Christian Trojans. They fall to the Florence Gophers 28-21. They're now 1-1 on the season. Ralph, I got to say, I very simply was not expecting a loss.
I wasn't either. It's kind of a revenge game for Florence. I think this was a 1-score game last year. Ends up being a 1-score game this year. They're a good team. I had them underranked in the Arizona Varsity Top 10. I think I had them as the number 9 team coming in. I think I might be the only person in the state that had Valley Christian as number 1. I was so high on them. But sometimes you get a big week 1 win, you got to turn around and be humbled. And like you said, this is a young team, and this might be the thing that catapults them into realizing, you know, how serious you got to be week in and week out. It wasn't so much that it was the first half. They came out sleepwalking and found themselves down 2 touchdowns. To rally and tie the game is one thing, but sometimes you can gas yourself out in a comeback like that, and that's what it looks like happened.
I definitely want to talk to both of you guys about their next game, because that's a big one. But Chili, more so in this particular one, it seems like they've got a freshman tight end, Caden Palmquist, scored a touchdown. Seems like the passing game is starting to connect. They've got some players.
Yeah, look, Caden Palmquist got a super high ceiling. The kid is big, he's long, he's got a nice frame. They were kind of juggling quarterbacks, if you will, Macias and Gill. That pass game, they got to find some consistency there. Up front, the line is solid, and Rockefeller can handle the workload that he's being given. Defensively, I think they're okay. Guys like Llewellyn and Gomez and Hans and all those guys, like I think that they're solid defensively. It's just I think that pass game has to catch up to where they've been the past few years. And I know, as you know, inexperience within the receiving room. I don't know if Hansel's back yet. So they got guys like Noah Lewis, Caden Palmquist having to step up and really take on those leadership roles. And that's tough because this team has leaned on the pass a little bit the past few years.
Hey, and did you guys see, I just sent you a text message, but Florence, who has like the most 1960s logo ever, they actually updated their Florence Gopher logo to be the meanest looking logo in the entire state. Had I known that, maybe I would have picked the Gophers. Isn't that crazy?
No, it kind of gives me the Oregon State Beavers vibe.
Like Oregon State Beavers logo would be better if it was that, in my opinion.
Oh, true.
Very good stuff. I'll ask you guys about the next game. They go to Thatcher 2-0. Thatcher has not given up a point yet. 2 facets I want to get on. I'll ask you first, actually. What do they need to do to win this game?
They need to open up that pass game. They need to find that consistency so that Thatcher can't just focus on stopping Rockefeller, running the rock. I just think that if this is gonna be a tough game. You said it's at Thatcher also.
It is at Thatcher, yes.
That's a long drive. Like it's a long bus ride. Lock in, get focused. That defense is going to have to make sure that they can get the offense the ball back. Macia's got to get an early rhythm. And when Gil's called upon, he's got to be ready to go. In that Tempe game, he was ready to go. I think he threw the only touchdown of the game. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. Seems like a million years ago that happened. But it's really on the quarterback play, I think.
Ralph, I want to ask you about that. Okay.
I was just going to say, in this defense, outside of the 48-yard touchdown from Florence's running back, I think his name is Malik Smith, and the 28-yard run from Logan Stenson, their dual-threat quarterback, they only gave up 4.5 yards a carry. Without those two runs, it would have been 34 carries for 157 yards. That's respectable. But when you have those two explosive plays against you in the running game, all of a sudden they're averaging 6.5 yards a carry. They get the 2 long touchdowns, and you have to be. And Thatcher is not going to come out and throw the ball. Like Florence threw the ball 11 times. I'd be surprised if Thatcher did half that. So you really, really have to be on your game when it comes to stopping the run, because when they finally did make Florence throw, they picked off 2 of those passes. So
Correct.
Finding a way to bottle up Thatcher's running game is going to be everything to Valley Christian.
And in regards to Thatcher, Ralph, are we starting to see this being a rivalry game in a sense of, and I don't know, it's tough to just drop in, it's a rivalry game, but it's been very meaningful the last few times they played, whether it was the postseason game a couple years ago, VC trying to get that revenge. It's 2 small school powers. I don't know. One of you guys take that.
Man,
hey, Ralph, I think that this is kind of becoming one of those like high level rivalries, like how Golden State, Cleveland, when they were going back and forth, in the finals and stuff like that, that was a rivalry then, NBA basketball stuff. Right. But I don't think that this is a rivalry in the traditional sense. I think that these guys look at each other like, oh, hey, we're at the top right now. This is a thing.
Yeah, I think Valley Christian and Thatcher look at each other as rivals, like, because they both in some way believe that there's a 12th man. I think the rivalry between Thatcher and Valley Christian is more with that 12th man. Like, they both kind of carry the belief that the refs are riding for the other side. Based on the last couple of matchups. So stuff like that, controversial plays, I think can stoke a rivalry between 2 schools. But because there's been so much kind of nonsense based on like Thatcher trying to invalidate what Valley Christian did, Valley Christian going to Thatcher and believing that they were playing against the refs that one time. I think that is maybe more of the crux of it. I would love to see them keep playing each other every year, because I think it's awesome, and there's been some really close, fun games.
And great measuring stick for both teams. It
really is. But I almost wonder if it's one of those things where it's like, I don't even think about you. I think about what the refs did for you. And it's funny because it comes from both sides of the aisle on that. I would love for it to be just kind of a good, clean rivalry, but we're gonna need a clean, non-controversy filled game.
Definitely not. That makes sense. And then props to former Valley Christian player Dominic Zavada. He is kicking for the Michigan Wolverines. So that is
wild.
That's amazing.
Didn't Chili used to hype him like, and people would be like, "You're talking about a small school kicker. You had a nickname for him and everything."
Boy had the boo.
Yeah.
From there to Arkansas State to Michigan. I mean, that's just fantastic. So certainly good for him, and we are, of course, pulling for that Valley Christian program. The Seton Catholic Sentinels, they lose their opener at Ironwood Ridge by a score of 28-20. The Sentinels, they actually scored first on a Chase Dixon touchdown pass to Joseph Florence, but ultimately fell behind 28-7, and it was an uphill battle really the rest of the way. Ralph, good to see some of these guys who we've talked about connect. In a losing effort, though, wow. 5A team, they hung with them. I can't say they gave them all they could, but at the same time, I did not think that this score would be that close, especially on the road.
And you were almost, they got ahead, and I like texted a couple of people, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, you got to turn this game on. By the time people turned the game on, it was 28-7 Ironwood Ridge. And I was like, well, it was fun while it lasted. And then they didn't quit. They outscore Ironwood Ridge 13-0 in the fourth quarter, and I believe possibly, from what I was following from the Morales brothers, I think even had the ball at one point to potentially tie it.
They did, yes.
Yeah, they held Ironwood Ridge to completing only about 50% of their passes, forced 2 interceptions. Outside of Jaden Martinez, they bottled up everyone in the running game, and even Jaden Martinez, he had 4 carries for 9 yards before he busted a 44-yarder. So, I mean, this is something that I think that Seton Catholic can build off of, can be very proud of. Sloan Sweet going out there getting 9 solo tackles. That's got to pump his team up. Michael Probst getting 2 sacks. Like, this is something that I really think that they can build off of. And they blocked a punt. So, like, they've got positive things on offense, special teams, and defense. They didn't just drive home having been beat down. I think they got to come out of this game feeling pretty good about themselves.
Hopefully that is the case. I mean, we definitely pull for Seton Catholic. I mean, that's an understatement. We pull for all teams, but there's something that's always been special about that Sentinel program. And I'm looking to try to catch up with them at a practice, but I'm hoping they connect, but they're getting it done on the field. And Chili, your initial thoughts on game 1 of Seton Catholic? I mean, it's a team that has taken its lumps the last few years, but maybe they're starting to blossom because we know they've had some guys come back.
Ironwood Ridge is like a lot of people's sleeper team for like 5A. A lot of people think that this team can be highly competitive and possibly jump into like maybe a Final Four and an Elite 8 group in the 5A playoffs. So, I mean, Seton was able to compete with them. I mean, maybe we got it all wrong. And, you know, while some of us are thinking like, oh, hey, hopefully this team can scrap and put a couple wins together, maybe Waldheim's been doing some things behind the scenes, some mad scientist type of stuff that, you know, we don't even know about. And he's really got a scheme together. So shout out to the Sentinels and shout out to Waldheim for having a game plan, because I've seen Ironwood Ridge in scrimmage. They got a lot of guys over there that look good dueling. Like they got some dudes on that defense that look like they could be absolute problems, especially up front in the trenches. So whatever Seton's doing, you know, even in a loss, they're kind of doing right. But you know, look, big plays, special teams, errors, like that's the type of stuff that will kill you. That's the type of stuff.
Right. No, you're right.
You know, and I, you know, close relationship with Coach Regal, who's been a special teams coach at the Power 4, Power 5 level for years and years and years. And, you know, he's the one that always told me about, you know, how important the special team stuff is, because, you know, you have to have a coach that really knows what they're doing to manage the special team stuff, because it's like one play here and there in the games, and your guys got to be fully locked in, because if they're not locked in the whole time paying attention to everything that's going on throughout the game, like if they mess up their one opportunity in there, it ends up being a huge return, a huge punt return, a huge kick return, and it breaks the game open, because some of those are the most exciting things that really jack a team up. So, you know, hey, listen, shout out to Seton. Keeping it close versus Ironwood Ridge is impressive, and this is a situation where, you know, some transparency. I was getting a billion texts about the Seton game. I think one of them from Ralph. I actually thought that they were playing Millennium, and so I was like, damn, they're keeping it close with Millennium. I was like, that's fantastic too, because that's a solid 5A squad. But Ironwood Ridge, and no shade on Millennium, but Ironwood Ridge, like I said, is a lot of people's sleepers. So I think that there's, you know, a lot to take away from this for Seton.
Brett, if you lost by 8 on the road where you had to travel over 100 miles and you turn the ball over 4 times and it's against a school a level above you, do you walk out feeling like you blew it, or do you walk out feeling like, okay, we got something to build on here? That's kind of going to be the difference, right? Are they discouraged or encouraged?
No, I definitely think, you get back on that bus and know that, hey, if we clean up a couple of things and only lost by 8 to this team, hey, when we get back into our normal region and other 4A teams, we should be able to compete and win. So no, it's we hate saying those moral victories, but I think this stage of the season, which is game 1, and they say also the biggest improvement a team makes is between game 1 and game 2. We'll see how they do against St. Mary's.
Hey, Brett, listen, and like you just said, no moral victories or whatever. But this Ironwood Ridge team, like up front, like they got guys like Baba and this stud sophomore Allen. Allen didn't get a sack, and this is a kid that I got to watch at some premier camps in the off season, and Seton holding him without a sack. Like I'm borderline stunned. This kid is going to be a monster, a kid that that you on your AIA show are going to be talking about for the next few years. That Ralph is going to be watching and monitoring. Somebody that I'm going to keep an eye on. Baba, I think, is going to be a breakout guy this year too. And that he got 2 sacks, but like, man, there's a lot of good things to take away from this, and I really hope that Seton, even with the loss, takes some of the momentum from this game and says, hey, look, you know what? Everybody talking about, and us included, we should drop down to 3A. Hey, look, we just kept up with one of the big 5A teams.
Sure. I'll definitely say, Pete Walheim, if you're listening, hey, I'm looking forward to trying to come out. Just let me know when you guys are actually going to be on the field. We'll move up to ACP, and the Knights, they lose their opener as well, 42-7 to the Crown Point Bulldogs, Crown Point being in Indiana. Ralph, very simply, they took it on the chin from a better team. The way that I'll phrase it to you guys, this would be the equivalent of a good team in Fort Wayne, Indiana, last year coming out to playing Centennial. Very simply, it was going to be kind of a mismatch, but at the same time, one can take some good things out of it. I'm looking for one of the quotes that Coach Vaught sent, which I will dig up in 1 minute. I don't have it ready, but he was very excited about going out there, and he pretty much felt that, hey, we're doing this for the right reasons, and it could be the best team that they face all year, Ralph.
Yeah. Which one of ACP's 4 rushing yards was your favorite?
Right. Yeah.
It's tough. The difference was at the line of scrimmage because they weren't turning the ball over. They were completing passes. They had a couple of big plays. But the truth of the matter is 22 attempts for 4 yards shows you that the issue is the physicality. I got a message from an ACP parent. Is a video of their weight room. It looked like Bishop Gorman's weight room.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
You guys have both been there. It was said that it looked like professional facilities, professional weight room. They were outclassed. And if you know anything about Indiana, and I know very little about Indiana, they have these palatial basketball stadiums for all of their high schools. Yeah. 14 of the 15 biggest high school gymnasiums are in Indiana, and the 15th is in Window Rock, Arizona. So, like, I didn't know that they got down like that for football as well, but we talked about it last week. Chandler invited IMG to come out and smack him in the mouth like Big John Henderson because I can't go play till I taste blood. And if ACP, who, we've never called ACP soft, but we've called them smart kids. Mm-hmm. We've called them kids with extra priorities like orchestra, band, and other stuff that they're involved in, speech and debate. That's the cool thing about ACP. I would have sent my kids to ACP because they have multiple interests or whatever. But you want to find out what it takes to succeed on the football field. You got to go against a team that has it all together. And they did that. And the result is the result. I hope that it ends up being worthwhile because that's a long way to travel to take a boot to the face.
Correct. And his quote was, exactly, Brett, this will be a great test for us to find out what we're made of and what we need to fix. And yeah, they were exposed, but at the same time, like we talked about, probably the toughest team they're going to face all year. Chili?
Yeah. Look, this Crown Point team was good. I had a couple other analysts around the country tell me hey, why is this matchup taking place? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, Crown Point's a very, very good team out here. And last year they lost to a team whose only loss was to IMG. And I know that that's kind of a knee bone connected to the thigh bone thing, but Crown Point, they are no joke. That's you're getting into a different tier. And I love that Coach Vaught is willing to take on that challenge for his kids. Coach Vaught comes from that Chandler mentality that Ralph just brought up, where Chandler brought IMG out to compete, where Chandler went out to Bishop Gorman to compete. That's how you make a program a better program. You go compete versus teams that maybe you shouldn't be competing with, so that you can find out exactly where it is you want to go and where your kids might want to go. It's a big loss. It's a big loss, but it's an out-of-state team, so you get to come home and you get to figure things out. I think David Martinez, Cam Mitchell, they did what they could do on defense. Offensively, I'm encouraged. I don't think I saw any interceptions from Heinrich, so I think that that's a big thing, that he wasn't just giving the ball away. When at least from what I saw in clips, and I saw a bunch of them. Also, Sanchez was solid. This is a kid that I talked about, all off season and in the preseason preview and stuff like that. Sanchez was solid. They just got to find a compliment for him. I don't know if it's Poole or Chapman or Davis or one of those guys. Just got to step up and play parallel to him. Obviously Ralph brought it up. Which one of those 4 yards was your favorite? Look, they got to develop a running game, and they're going to have to develop a running game here in Arizona. And you know what? They only got 4 yards versus tough Crown Point team. Whether it's Mater Dei, whether you get smacked by 50 points to Mater Dei or lose to Long Beach Poly or Gorman or whoever. This is how you figure it out. You figure it out by taking a test and struggling.
And they're going to be all right. They will definitely be all right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're back on the road. Yeah, they're back on the road, and they'll face an Apache Junction team that fell to Peoria 27-13. So, yeah, ACP, we look to see their winning ways this upcoming weekend. Speaking of winning ways, let's get to winning. And that's what the Casteel Colts did at Boulder Creek, 31-21, fifth straight season opening win for Bobby Newcomb. Chili, very simply, it's great to see them get the victory, and hopefully it's the first of many.
Yeah, look, I'm excited. My guy Paul Palmer went out there and dumped 4 touchdowns. Now he's on pace to throw 40 for the season. And look, I hope that he ends up being, a 28, 32 touchdown guy. This is a guy that I've been high on for a while now. Elijah Beeman, an absolutely spectacular playmaker out there. Merrick Kubaki, one of my favorite tight ends in the state. I think that he's a criminally under-recruited and paid attention to. I know a lot of people have interest, but this is a guy that I think could play some high-level football. And then those linebackers, I'm going to kill the one kid's name. It's Faitongatau. And I'm not sure,
Fatongiatau.
Fatongiatau. Okay, there you go. I'm just going to record Ralph saying it so I can hit a button every time I need to say it. And then I don't know what happened with my guy Del Nose, but I know that, once he's available or once he's ready to do his thing, like, he'll be good to go. I didn't really see him pop up in the thing, but two-way guy like Mason Lewis is an absolute star, and I expect.
I like Mason Lewis. I like him a lot.
Stud.
Hey, Chili, does Fritzy Niklaus have a little brother named Fitzgerald Niklaus?
I think so.
Because I saw Casteel got a tackle from somebody named Fitzgerald Niklaus, and I remember.
I think he has a little.
Player. Okay.
I think he has a little brother. I'm not sure if that's his little brother.
Is that the player to be named later in the Devin Brown trade?
Funny.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
Funny stuff.
Dang. Ralph, look, hey, I know I called it right when a celebrity like Cody Cameron is willing to jump in and throw in his 2 cents and say that tight end is very good. Now I know I've officially made it.
Ralph, I'm going to throw out an obscure stat.
Okay.
Casteel, 9 straight wins against Arizona teams that are not in the CUSD or in the postseason. Yes, comes from the Brett has too much time on his hands type of thing. But no, actually, it just lends credence to how good this team is that, hey, when they lose in Arizona, when they lose in state, they're only losing in the postseason or the CUSD. You have to go back to 2021 when they lost to Highland. That's the last time they lost in the regular season to an in-state team.
Yeah, it's got to be like being Deion Sanders' kid, right? Like, I'm out here killing everybody else, but then in the home, I'm having to battle for number one in my dad's eyes. And, there's only one Shadura or whatever. So, I feel bad because it's all so consolidated, but that's why this podcast exists.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I want to see Casteel do well, but because of this arrangement, because so many talented football players and talented football coaches are consolidated in one city in about 10 square miles.
Yep.
We get to do a show. I want to see Casteel climb that mountain, but to win 9 in a row against anybody not in the CUSD or in the playoffs, at some point that gets a little frustrating because it can get in your head. But Basha had to battle out of this.
Yes.
Perry had to battle out of this, and Casteel has to climb the same mountain. No,
that's very true. It's a tough one for the Colts. They hit the road traveling not far. They will take on the Queen Creek Bulldogs this Friday night. So we'll see if that streak continues. But I mean, again, like you said, it's all a lot of talent concentrated in this very small area. So it's great football in the East Valley. And yes, I'm saying the East Valley, whomever is a West Side advocate out there. The Perry Pumas, they get the season off on the right start with a 40-7 pounding of the Desert Ridge Jaguars. Chili, you were out there, and I think collectively as a team, the three of us feel that Cale Snyder is going to throw a lot of touchdown passes this year. He threw 5 on Friday night. He's going to have a lot more over the season.
Yeah, hey, look, I was out there. We're going to put up my real cool graphic that I do for every game that I go to. And this is Seton related. So, I want to talk about some of these guys here. Look, lots of balls. But real quick, real quick, I do got to shout out my guy, Brett, for Tweet of the Year. Brett, I absolutely love this. This is the truth. And I texted you right away. I thought that this was absolutely legit. And I love when we can be real like this because I posted when Cale Snyder I think I posted the video or whatever, and my man Brett retweeted immediately. Lots more wins, lots more touchdowns, and that was like in the first quarter. And Brett was right. Listen, my man threw lots more touchdowns in game 1 as he ended it up with 5 different receivers, and he got that dub. And he did tell me privately, he's like, hey, I'm going to make sure that Brett backs that up, and I'm going to get a lot more wins. So, Brett, just know that Cale Snyder, he's got you. But look, they had dudes out there putting in that work. Hayden Moon, he had another long touchdown. It was about a 75-yard variety call back. Maddox Ford was out there putting in that work both ways. LJ Walker is absolutely special out there. And Peyton Greco is a key guy. He's one of those guys that a lot of people are expecting Walker and Moon and Amos Augustine to do their thing. But Greco is one of those guys that's going to be a quiet killer. If he goes off this year, if he goes out and grabs 6, 7, 5 touchdowns or whatever, those are going to be difference-making touchdowns that are going to help keep his team in the game and propel them further. And he might end up being like an 8 or 9 guy, just depending on how loose Cale gets. So I am super excited about this Perry team and what they got going on. Defensively, they were solid, and offensively, they were clicking on all cylinders by the time that second quarter rolled around.
Ralph, this kid is a sophomore. I mean, he's going to attract kids who want to play with him. He's up for the part. I mean, that was the thing that I was really kind of, I don't even want to use the word concerned, but until a kid does it on the field, I just don't know.
Yeah,
you're
right.
He did it on the field, and it's like, wow. I mean, they got something special at QB1 for the next 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm happy for them because you come into a season thinking your quarterback's going to be one person, and and things change. You got to be able to adapt to that. Perry, I know you got a big staff. Fix your stat book. I want to give credit to Hayden Moon. It says he doesn't score. I know he scored. I know he scored because I saw him score right in front of Chili on the broadcast in his bright yellow pants.
Oh, Coach Ortiz. Hey, look, man.
He's good, Chili. I'm mad that I didn't know about him. You prepped me on a lot of these Perry players, but you didn't tell me about Hayden Moon.
No, Hayden Moon's legit. Hayden Moon's legit. I've known that he was going to be a guy for them. LJ, it's just, listen, this receiving core is super deep, and I know that Brett is going to get out there and get to put his hands in there and dig into what Perry has going on.
Absolutely,
they got a lot of weapons, and the unique thing about the Greco kid is he can also play quarterback. This is a guy that's going to be featured in a lot of different ways for them, I think. So, like, late in the games when they're up or whatever, he's going to take some snaps, and he's still going to be throwing. He's going to get his opportunities. He's going to score in a variety of ways. He's a fun athlete to watch.
You know what I'm not used to? is in the 6A Premier, seeing somebody on the field as often as Maddox Ford is on the field.
True.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Led them in tackles, led them in passes defended. Was one of the leading rushers. Had a couple of catches. And
Give you Travis Hunter vibes.
Yeah, and the Ford family, they just got such an awesome legacy at Perry by this point. It's like the Hatch family all over again. And so, I don't know. It's just been it was really, really cool to see them have that success. And I don't know, man. Kyle Williams, early candidate for assistant coach of the year. If he's going to have these receivers playing like that, I mean, pretty good pickup by Coach Ortiz.
Absolutely. I mean, this is this could be, and later in the podcast, not even this podcast, later in the season, I'll get into this, but this is a team and a school that could do some domination, not necessarily this year. I mean, they'll be good, but I'm talking 2 years out in the sense of the talent that could flow towards Perry with what we're seeing. It could be we could rewind that clock 5 years and see them competing at elite, open, all that sort of stuff. Dare I use that word elite? That's not, let me not push that. But you get what I'm saying.
Speaking of rewinding the clock, Chili, who were you hanging out with out there?
Oh, man, I got to hang out with Papa Purdy, man. It was a cool moment. He remembered. I always wonder, which of these parents remember some of the work that we just put in, covering their kids and things like that. And he fully remembered. He was like, oh man, he's like, Chili, I remember you talking to my kid. He said my kid, and Ralph, we had this conversation a little bit. He's like, oh, my kid, like in the middle of the field over there, when he didn't have any offers, and that was Brock Purdy. And, it was cool. It was just very cool. And somewhat humbling, like, he's like, oh man, he's like, I remember when you came out to cover his signing day, his commitment day and stuff, and thankful. And I was like, oh man,
and that's why we do this. I mean, it's
the best time of my life.
It's fantastic that we relate to the kids and the parents relate to us. I mean, and I'll say the good ones recall who was there in the beginning. And it's one of those things, whether it's someone who obviously is in the NFL, Brock Purdy's parents, or if it's a kid that we may not even remember. And in 3-4 years, hey, you guys covered me in 2016 and now I have a little one of our own. And we might have to be like, oh, wait, who was he? Oh, that was him, that type of thing. So, I mean, we do it from top to bottom. And yes, that experience that you had, that's awesome. That really is.
Yeah. And look, I still talk to the Sterlings, not to get too far off track, but what's it called? Levi and Centennial, who I both put on the radio so that they could talk crazy to the guy that managed like the Circle K across the street from wherever, that said that they were never going to.
I remember that guy.
Or whatever. I put Levi on the radio on 101.5, and then like 5 years later or whatever, he ended up working over there doing like the same Friday night shift. Like it was just so cool.
Not at Circle K, at the radio.
Well, I never worked at Circle K, but they have the best like Polar Pop like slushy things where I am always going to go get one. Like they have a Dr. Pepper flavored one. I had like canceled soda, and I just am addicted to these things, so I brought soda back into my life. So
have you ever taken it?
Give us money, Circle K.
Have you ever taken advantage of the Circle K special? I'm going to say both of you guys, please say no. $5 gets you 6 wings and a Red Bull.
Are you serious?
Wait,
I haven't,
what?
but I might.
What? That's insane.
Yeah.
That isn't chicken, though. That can't be chicken.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's
possum.
Yeah.
I'll take a possum wing for cheap enough, though.
Crazy.
The Perry Pumas, they'll head out to Cathedral Catholic on Saturday. They'll take on Granite Hills High School. Granite Hills is 2-0 on the year. The Hamilton Huskies, and this was just really cool to see. Seeing Travis Dixon come back to his alma mater, leading his team to a 17-10 victory over the Centennial Coyotes. It's just awesome. The first thing I'll mention is Travis Dixon reminds me a lot of Marcus Freeman, head coach of Notre Dame. That demeanor, that, hey, he's the cool coach who you want to play for. He's a young enough guy that we can relate to him. So that's the vibe that I get from Travis Dixon, from both observing him in press conference scenarios, on the sidelines, and even interviewing him myself. So that's kind of what I get from Travis Dixon. The Hamilton Huskies, hey, good win. Sabrium Torres, 4 catches for 104 yards and a score. The one concern, and defense obviously was phenomenal. We can talk about a couple of the defensive players, and they're young. The one thing that concerns me about Hamilton, again, it's only game 1, and they have a plan. You never want your quarterback to be the leading rusher. That's just something that we always would say it about Perry, and that ultimately might have been why they never got to the very top. They got some guys, and you got the transfer guys who are in. There'll be a game plan, but I'd like to think that Rich Lucero leading them in rushing, granted it's 23 yards, is a one-time only thing. So, yeah, Ralph, I'll get your take on it.
That's a really good point. They really did not run the ball much outside of Rich Lucero, 9 carries total on the game. And we got really, really deep into the weeds on the fall off of Chandler's running game, and a lot of it had to do with just trying to establish the pass instead of making the run your identity. However, Rich Lucero and Sabrium Torres looked incredible in this game. Their connection is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Torres got to be about 150 pounds soaking
wet.
wet.
He's a small guy. Yep.
He was out there mixing dudes up. And I just want to give some love to this Hamilton defense, and another deep in the weeds stat, like you said earlier. They had 8 players make tackles that were not seniors, and 7 players make tackles that were seniors. This defense is going to be good for a minute. The sophomore defensive lineman,
Derek LeBlanc?
Yeah, Derek LeBlanc. Like, what do you now? You have to worry about him. Look, Kanan Mana is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the state of Arizona. Not only did he have his worst passing game at 11 of 32, and he doesn't turn the ball over, so he wasn't go out there and throw picks, but he did have to throw the ball away 21 times. They also had him on the run all night. He ran more than he ever has in his career, 13 attempts for 45 yards. And so, like, they had him uncomfortable all night. And then you look over at Centennial, who they live on tackles for a loss. And maybe that's what Hamilton was trying to take away. The quick passing game meant that Centennial went through a full game without a tackle for a loss. They had 2 sacks, but they weren't getting the running back in the backfield because there was no running back to get in the backfield. So what I'm curious to see is if this was Hamilton's game plan or their identity. And we'll find out from week to week, but this is an awesome first win for a first-year head coach.
Chili, speak on this defense. As Ralph said, it's going to be good for a little bit.
They got after it. Dejon Hinton is a huge acquisition. As was shown, as was displayed, and Derek LeBlanc is an absolute monster. I'm excited. I'm excited for Hamilton. I'm excited for Coach Dixon. Timely. They were able to get a couple guys available last minute, which I think really put them over in this matchup, because I had Centennial a small 3-point favorite going into the game, and I think that getting some of those guys available to them really helped them out, and just having Jacob Brown as a threat. Surprisingly, he did not lead the team in rushing, but I think that's coming. And he's going to be an absolute star for them. I'm still waiting on Reese Rinaldi to be made available. I think that, and I have zero problems with the AIA. I really do. I think you need a governing body, but I don't know. WTF is going on? Free 17, free Reese Rinaldi. Because what is going on with Reese is absolute crap. And I am so disappointed that so many kids were made available and Reese Rinaldi was not one of them because he's in the exact same situation. So it's so unfair. It's so unfair. And I don't know how you make a situation like this across the board fair, but Reese deserves to be playing now, last week, this week. So I just want to get that out there. But getting back to Hamilton Centennial, Hamilton did what they had to do. And this is so big. This is such a big game because Centennial has so many big games left after this, before the transfers come in, that they might. I know people are talking about it. The whispers are out there. The Hamilton beating them in game 1 might push Centennial out of the open.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Remember, we're still, as far as I know, the AI
still very early.
Still has the bus bonus. They'll still welcome a bad loss over a mediocre win, or a good loss over a mediocre win. That's the way the AIA formula works. So if Centennial's getting that bus bonus and Hamilton keeps winning, it might actually help them to have even showed up for this game.
Absolutely. The one thing I would like to see Hamilton do, and they host Desert Ridge, I'd like to see them score 40. I'd like to see them open up the offense. And it's not about, let's blow this
Coach
team
Lopez,
out.
we love you.
But this is a team that I want to see, and I think they want to see some of these weapons. What else do we have? I mean, this is a time for somebody.
Man, I'm having deja vu. I feel like this is like 2017 all over again. Hamilton beating people 30-10, and Brett's like, keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. I'd like to see them open things up and see what they have.
Hey, but we've talked about this type of stuff before. Hamilton needs to be somebody else's boogeyman. We talked about it last year after they took the loss to Liberty, that Hamilton had to go out the next 4 games and really show the history of who they were. And so I kind of poke a little fun just because I love Coach Lopez and his Desert Ridge team. I just watched them last week. They got some
good stuff.
He's a guy.
The Chandler Wolves. They pull away from Cesar Chavez. Final score there, 27-18. Chili, you were at this one as well. Tell us about Will Menzel, quarterback. This team that I'll say, at least for myself, I don't know much about yet.
Yeah. Hey, look, I was there. So boom, another graphic. That's how I do this thing. But yeah, I was out there, and Chandler. I don't want to say they survived, and Coach Garrison's going to hit me up and kill me and kill me again for what Ralph has said in the last 24 hours, so it's all good. But look, Chandler looked good, but Cesar Chavez looked good also. Cesar Chavez was doing a thing. Their defensive line was solid. They had a couple guys balling early on. They tried to, just get that early momentum going, scoring first. And even before that, they had a long punt return that was called back. They made some big plays throughout the game, but dude, Chandler, they just stayed who they are. Will Menzel looked good, man. A couple touchdowns. A kid that I really like the linebackers. They had a pair of linebackers over there. Kupu, Browder mentioned over here. I thought that those guys were studs and really balled out. Their defensive line was a lot better. They played a lot better than what I expected. I thought Xavier Sr. was good. Jamie Kiwi was good. And their secondary, Hamisi Juma, seeing him over there and available early week 1. I was super excited for that. Aiden Browder, an absolute blanket of a cornerback, just covering up receivers. And when he was in the game, it seemed like Cesar Chavez really wasn't trying to test him, throw his way at all. And Chandler took advantage of some of these guys on their defense that were able to lead. Aiden Browder's a freaking stud all over the place.
He's a guy.
A lot of tackles. But yeah, a kid, if I don't mention him, I'd be punishing myself. Tristan Halsana, I believe it's Halsana, the running back, went off. And I want to make sure that people understand this. Look, I only get 10 slots over here because I can only tag 10 kids. So I got to show some love. This game was close, so I had to give Chavez kids some credit. But Halsana is definitely a kid that I should have mentioned up here. I just ran out of slots. And I wanted to show some love to some of these defensive players because often I think in the past, Chandler defensive guys have been overlooked because of the damage that their offensive guys were doing. Their receivers, the spans, some of those guys, some of the heavy running back rooms that they've had, always a quarterback there. So I wanted to make sure that I recognize some of these guys in the trenches. Shout out to my guy, Coach Chick, who always wanted me to show some more love to the bigs, to the big fellas. So I gave some of that love this way, and that's what I did. But it was a great game. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Chandler must be down and Chavez kept it close. No, Chavez is coming up. Well coached. Shout out to Coach Hovick and Chandler. They held on. They did what they had to do, protected Austin Field, and got that victory. And Chavez is going to surprise a lot of people.
Ralph Halsana looks to be the next guy in that long legacy of running backs.
Yeah, I mean, last year he had 10 yards a carry on like 20 carries total. And you're thinking to yourself, like, well, yeah, of course you can do some of that in spot duty. And then he did it over the course of a whole game, getting 18 carries in this first matchup. So that was very impressive. Look, Chandler's got to put more points on the board if they want people to think of them like it's 2017, 2018, 2019. They got to do the 2017, 2018, 2019 things. That's the truth. And so all I said on the thing last night was I think that Chandler is currently the 7th best team, and if they show me something different, I will say something different.
NCUSC. You said NCUSC.
No, I didn't. I said in our rankings. In the rankings that we brought up on the 2-piece, the all insurance Power 25, we had them at number 7. Now, you initially wanted them at 5. I'm the one that argued them down, so Garrettson should be mad at me, not you. But here's the deal. This week, Oregon beat Idaho, and the score was 24-10. And you're like, oh, does Oregon suck? Because Idaho is like an FCS team, right? When then you look at the stats, Dylan Gabriel was 41 of 49 for 380 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. And you say, how does something like this happen? Every once in a while, you're just not able to finish a drive. You look at what Chandler did in this game. 15 of 17 passing, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. They got that touchdown on the nifty backdoor screen that they've been doing for years and years and years. Tristan Halsana averages 10 yards a carry. Will Menzel averages 10 yards a carry. They both get in the end zone. So you're thinking to yourself, how in the world was this only a 9-point game? Especially when they had 8 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks. Iona Kupu had an interception. Sometimes the final score doesn't necessarily reflect what you were able to do. However, you got to finish, because we're not talking about Chandler High having to play a bunch of other Cesar Chavez's down the road. We're talking about Hamilton. We're talking about Perry. We're talking about the big boys. So they
Liberty
just have
and
to
Highland.
Yeah, right. And I know that Chandler hasn't either, because Highland is finally kind of, that Chandler owes him one. We'll just put it that way. Mm-hmm. So, the fact that Chavez got 12 in the fourth, maybe made this game look a little bit closer than it was. But they just, if they want to be regarded as a team that steamrolls people, they have to steamroll people. That's all I'm saying. But is the score indicative? Like, did they play bad? No. And Chili will tell you that from being there firsthand. Did it look like the Chandler of last decade, though, Chili? The ones where we would sit around and debate, is this the greatest O-line of all time, or is this the greatest O-line of all? Like it.
Tricky question.
That means no.
Listen. One thing I want to bring up. One thing I do want to bring up is, we want to see this Chandler team fully running on all cylinders. Will Menzel looked very good. He looked very good, even though he was a transfer that was made available. He's got a high ceiling too, but this is a kid that, hasn't fully been able to process all the dynamics of the playbook. So, once he's fully able to do all that, game 7, 8, 9, 10, I think that we're going to be looking at a different running offense.
That's good.
And Brett, you know that's fair. Listen, there are some things to this game, though, Brett, that I kind of didn't get into. One is I believe that if I'm not mistaken, it was 20-6 in the fourth quarter, and then Cesar Chavez scored another touchdown. They opted to go for 2 instead of kick a field goal. So then it was 20-12, and then they scored another touchdown with I want to say 3 minutes left or something like that, and it was now 20-18. They opted to go for 2, missed it. They could have gone for They could have just gone for one
each time.
And so I mean the game was closer than the 9-point victory, even closer. So Chandler put the game away, just like Chandler is capable of doing. They got a great system over there. Garrettson's been there forever, one of the best coaches in the state. The team was, I felt like, differently than a lot of Chandler teams in the past. I felt like this team had a little bit more discipline, a little bit more self-discipline.
Interesting.
I didn't see them buying into a lot of the Chavez rah-rah stuff. And, I didn't see them getting as annoyed as they would in the past. And then all of a sudden, senseless 15-yard penalties. So I want to show some love there. I mean,
that's good. No, discipline is certainly going to pay off, especially in the back half of the season when you truly are playing within your own region. The Basha Bears, they are 1-0 after their 39-25 win over the Millard South Patriots from Omaha, Nebraska. We got our first look at Brodie Vehrs, junior quarterback, 395 yards, 5 touchdown passes. Noah Roberts, a sophomore, 108 yards on the ground. Gio Richardson, 5 catches, 171. Ralph, these are numbers that we are so used to talking about over the last few years. Only it was a different quarterback, but this offense still seems like it can steamroll people.
Yes. And how cool is it when your first ever varsity reception goes for 80 yards and a touchdown? So shout out to Jaden Baldwin because I mean, just the offense has so many weapons, and Chili tried to tell people, and it's hard for people to hear because it's 4 years of Damon Williams, but he's been out here talking about Brodie Vehrs for years, just like he's been out here talking about Paul Palmer for years. All that freshman level stuff that Chili was doing in 2019, 2020 through 2021, it's all paying dividends. I don't think anybody in the state knows more about what's happening right now and how it was earned over time than Chili does. And I heard Brodie Vehrs' name from Chili and pretty much nobody else. And he has 400 yards of offense in his first start. I mean, yikes. That wasn't, let's not pretend that's something Damon was doing. Damon was going to throw for 250, run for 100, protect the football. Brodie Vehrs is out here averaging 25 yards of completion. And so,
right.
And I know it's only been one game, but man, this offense looked so fluid and so good with so many weapons that, last night I tried to talk Chili into moving Liberty above them. Then I spent all night regretting it. So, it is a worthwhile debate as to who is the number one team in the state. I think there's a little bit of adjustment that this Basha team is going to have to make defensively, but sometimes it's hard when you don't give your defense a rest because you're scoring on the first play.
Very true. Very true. Chili, give us your rant. I know you like to just spout at the mouth, especially on Basha. It's entertaining. Have at it.
I am so excited because, just like I told everybody about Damon Williams, just like I told everybody about Mikey Keene, just like I told everybody about Brodie Vehrs. Look, Brodie Vehrs is an absolute stud that's going to win a lot of games for Basha. He started his career over there at Chandler, split time on the freshman team, made his move to Basha, played some JV last year, and now he's ready to take over. I think that now that he fully understands the system and what's going on, I think that this is easy for him. This is a walk in the park. Look, there's going to be a lot of tough teams out there that he's going to compete against down the line. He's obviously got the Chandler, the CUSD schools, like Hamilton and Perry and things like that. But he's got Mission Viejo coming up on the horizon. That's going to be an absolutely huge game that this team has to be ready for. They're going to have to be serious. My guys, Blue Dantzler, going to have to go get in that backfield and go get that quarterback, from Mission Viejo. My guy Trey Knox, you better be serious over there too, because he's gonna have an assignment with those receivers over there. And I know that this game is down the line a couple weeks away or whatever, but these guys better be ready to go. And whoever they look in the face this week, they better really put it to them and start setting the tone for what's coming the rest of the way.
And they'll be playing the Mesa Jackrabbits. That's the game I'll be at. I'm looking forward to seeing Brodie for the first time. And, I talked to Gio Richardson on Saturday, and he obviously had a big game then. He'll probably have another solid one on Friday night. So, no, I look for some more offense, not more offense, but the same type of offense again this week.
Brett, I know you agree with me. This really does have to be like maybe the top receiving core in the state with Cash Brock, Baldwin,
And
Richardson.
Yeah.
These guys can go crazy. Cash Brock had the catch of the night at Flight Club, and that was an event that featured like Cooper Perry and some of the best players in the state. Fast David Cabrera over there from Desert Edge, like. So, I mean, these guys can do their thing, and they're going to be ready to go. Noah Roberts is an absolute animal.
Absolutely.
He's an absolute animal. So,
I mean, I'll say the back seven of Mesa's defense on Friday night, they're going to have their work cut out for them. They truly are.
And the front of Mesa's defense is going to have their work cut out for them with Hildebrand and Garcia and these guys just ready to steamroll. Like,
well, that goes without saying in a sense, but I'm just saying the depth of the skill positions that Basha has seemingly is just it's like a well. It really is.
No, for sure. Hey, listen, just like Brett out there challenging Hamilton, like I got to challenge Basha. Like, hey, go stomp on somebody this week. Go make your mark, because what's coming out after that, like those guys want to come eat these Bears, literally. Like the hot talk that's going on, sheesh. It's not for children. So
the number is 95. Over or under points scored by both Basha and Hamilton combined?
Under.
I'm taking the over. I'm taking the over.
I got to go slightly over also, but it's I don't know. That's why I like tossing out these questions. It's always food for thought.
I'm taking the over, and these guys better think about their food, because if they don't get the over, we're gonna have some different conversations on the podcast next week. Fair
enough. All right, guys. Well, as always, great chopping it up with you guys. Nobody brings it like the three of us within the walls of Seton, and yes, the CUSD extends into Gilbert and Queen Creek. But yes, audience, you get what we're saying. We talk about all 8 schools. Props to Chandler Prep, who is not included in this podcast, but they had that 83-0 victory, and that's huge. They got that little press box over there on Alma School Road now. It's kind of cool. So who knows? Maybe down the line there'll be 9.
Hey, that used to be a Smith's grocery store.
That's fine.
Hey, listen. I don't want to encourage running the bill up on people, but like, look, if they score 80 again, we definitely got to make them a part of the podcast. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, no.
If your offense is that crazy, like, we got to show you more love. If your kids are putting out that effort, and you guys are willing to take the chili challenge and go score 80, we gonna put you on the podcast.
Well, and this is a coach that's been part of the Seton Rivals family. This was ACP's offensive coordinator last year, who he took some heat for that offense not always looking well. Now that offense looks all right, and this is 1 week after they got shut out. So that's the biggest point turnaround maybe in Arizona high school history. There's no way to verify this, but to lose by 50 then win by 83.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's big. That's huge. That's very huge. Good stuff. But folks, we'll see you guys next week. This is the Seton Rivals Podcast.